of our past line members is deceased this past year. Gary Butler, Dr. John R. Bob Cook, Claude Durham, and Glenn Cornelius. And y'all got a brochure on your deal to follow along with. And Mike Meadows and Jim Malin are going to do most of the program. Steve Townley is going to lead us in a song. And then at the end, I'll ask for people to get up and speak about one of these members, something that you know about them, friends, anything that happened that was memorable to you. So if I will, I'll turn this over to Mike. I forgot one thing. I forgot to introduce our guest. With Bob Cook's family, we have Pat Cook and his daughter Sandra. And Sandra was our sweetheart in 1989. And she told me she just finished publishing a book, helped publish a book on the Buffalo Bio in Houston. So it just came out. And from Claude's family, we have Debbie Almert and Susan Wansley and her husband Jimmy.
All right, I hope everyone has a program. We're going to follow along together with this program. And if we could, as we have the call to celebration, if we could rise and go through the call to celebration together. I'll read the leader and you read the people. Lord, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. For the mountains were brought forth, wherever thou hast formed the earth and the world. Even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained, what is man, that thou art mindful of him, and the Son of Man, that thou visitest him? For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. The days of our years are 80 years and 10. And if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet it is their strength, labor, and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. So satisfy us early with thy mercy, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Let thy work appear unto thy servants, and thy glory unto their children. And let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish thou the work of our hands upon us. Yea, the work of our hands establish thou it. All right. At this time, Brother Townley is going to lead us in our hymn. Together. Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Let us pray. O God of grace and mercy, we give thanks for your loving kindness shown to Glenn, Claude, Bob, and Gary, and to all your servants who, having finished their course in faith, now rest from their labors. Grant that we also may be faithful unto death and receive the crown of life. Through Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. As you entered into the room today, You may have noticed the table at the front of the room. It's a small table in place of honor, and it is set for one. This table is our way as Lions of symbolizing the fact that there are members of this organization of Lions Club, that are missing from our midst as we gather today. And so we have chosen to remember them at this time by this table. You notice, as we note every year, the table is round, reminding us of the circle of life. The table is donned with a white tablecloth, symbolizing the purity of the service of our Lions who are no longer with us, their service to the community, to their loved ones, and to those in need. There's a candle lit upon the table, symbolizing the light that these Lions have given us by their unconquerable spirit. As well, upon the table there is a pinch of salt, symbolizing to us the sweat of these men's labor and the tears endured by those left behind. As well, next to the pinch of salt is a piece of bread, and this bread symbolizes the fruits of their efforts, the seeds they planted so that we may enjoy the harvest they have given to each and every one of us. Next to the plate with bread and salt, there is a glass inverted, symbolizing the fact that they cannot be here to celebrate with us on this day. And the chair sits at the table empty because they are no longer here. Remember, all of you who serve, remember all of you who served alongside each of these Lions and called them Lions, who depended upon their aid and relied upon their wisdom, for surely they have not forsaken you. These men chose to be Lions until the day of their passing, and it falls upon each and every one of us to continue the work they have started, to protect the legacy that they have entrusted to us, and to guide the world to a new vision of peace and service. At this time, we will remember each Lion through the roll call, and I will call out Pastor Jim Malin to begin.
We start with Glenn Cornelius. Glenn Cornelius, 83, Texas fiddle player, died on Saturday, October 1st, 2016, surrounded by his loving wife, Sandy, and precious dog, Penny. Glenn and Sandy would have celebrated 33 years of marriage on November 13th. They met in California, moved and lived in Houston for 5 years, and then retired to Livingston in 1990. Glenn was a lifetime member of the Methodist Church and belonged to the First United Methodist Church of Livingston, where he served on several committees and was a proud member of the Seeker Sunday School class. Glenn served as the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Livingston for several years. He was a loyal and proud member of the Livingston Lions Club. Born in 1933 in Baytown, Glenn was the son of Lelia and Luther Cornelius. He was blessed to be able to live in Baytown for the first 18 years of his life and develop lifelong relationships. Glenn graduated from Sam Houston University in 1955 and had a successful career in the computer industry as an executive vice president of an oil exploration company. Glenn and Sandy were able to travel throughout the United States in their RV and also vacationed in Europe, Japan, Mexico, China, Singapore, and Australia. Glenn is survived by his loving wife, Sandra, sons Rodney and wife Janine, Mark, Scott, Michael Jones and wife Tiffany, Stephen Jones and wife Paula, and David Jones, ukulele king of Central America, and wife Wendy. 7 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. He was preceded in death by granddaughter Jennifer Jones, Angel Buffer Cake, and his parents. A gravesite service was held in November in Eustis, where he spent summers growing up on his grandparents' farm. He was laid to rest among many family members, including his parents. Family and friends say Glenn is now fiddling around in heaven, playing one of his favorite fiddle tunes, Soppin' the Gravy. Next, we move to Claude Durham. Getting a call. Okay.
We're ready now.
Memorial services for Claude Durham, 83 of Livingston, Texas, were held Saturday, December 17th at Cochran Funeral Home. Claude passed away peacefully December 12, 2016, due to complications of diabetes and congestive heart failure. Claude was born in Littlefield, Texas. When he met Peggy Holmes in Amarillo, Texas, Claude would say that, for him, it was love at first sight, but took her a little longer. They were married 3.5 months later and remained together until Peggy's death 56 years later. Claude served in the Texas Army National Guard, worked for a number of telephone companies, and finally settled his family in Livingston, Texas. He retired in 1993 from East Tex Telephone Corporation as Livingston area manager after a 42-year career in telecommunications. Claude loved to travel and visited among almost every state and national park in the continental U.S. with his wife and grandson. He also found joy nurturing a large community of mallards and geese in his subdivision, raising several generations of hatchlings and guarding them with the fierceness of a mother hen. Claude was a dedicated member of the Lions Club, for whom he was proud to serve as president of his local club, zone and region chairman, district chairman, cabinet secretary, vice district governor, and finally district governor, as well as a Texas Lions Foundation fellow and trustee. Claude enjoyed participating in various fundraisers for charities and service activities and became passionate about programs to prevent blindness, restore eyesight, and improve eye health. He served as director, president, and ambassador of the Lions Eye Bank of Texas, and spent the last 2 decades of his life collecting and cataloging used eyeglasses for distribution throughout the Texas Lions Eyeglass Recycling Center and through personal trips to Honduras, Mexico, and Africa. For his service, Claude received 3 International President's Certificates of Appreciation and was awarded 2 International Leadership Medals. He will be missed by his family and friends, by the people whose career he helped shape at East Tex and who helped shape his, and by the countless individuals who gained vision through his service. He was preceded in death by his parents, Algie and Beulah Durham, wife Peggy Durham, sister Cyrita Durham, brother Gene Durham, and granddaughter Michelle Amburn. He is survived by his 2 daughters, Debbie Amburn and Susan Wansley, his brother Don Durham, 2 sisters, Aline White and Nita Gibson, 2 grandchildren, Mike Amburn Dixon, and Melanie Ann Morgan, and 2 great-grandchildren, Jamie Dixon and Delilah Ann Morgan. And one interesting piece of note, a family member, Melody, had written some thoughts and remembrances of her grandfather, Claude, and I'd like to close with this. She says, "I'll remember the man who walked like a king, spoke like a dignitary, and yet gave like a saint."
And now we remember on this day Dr. John R. Cook, also known to many of us as Dr. Bob Cook, who passed away at the age of 79 at his home in Livingston, Texas on November 24th of 2016 from complications of progressive supranuclear palsy. And I'm not sure I said that right. Which was a rare neurodegenerative brain disease that has no known cause, treatment, or cure. He was born in August of 1937 to John Bunyan, J.B. Cook, and Ruth Marsh Cook at the original Memorial Hospital in downtown Houston. I love how his obituary reads, "Young Bob," as opposed to old Bob, grew up in Livingston, attending local public schools and helping out with the family business, the White Kitchen Cafe in downtown Livingston. Upon graduation from Livingston High School, he enrolled at the University of Texas at Austin, along with his cousin and roommate Jerry Marsh of Livingston. He later graduated from the University of Texas School of Dentistry in Houston in 1961. And after that, Bob then served 2 years in the U.S. Air Force stationed in Amarillo, Texas, where he attained to the rank of captain. He married Patricia A. Pat Smith in 1961, and the couple settled in Livingston after Bob's service in the military was completed. Dr. Cook served the local community through his dental practice in Livingston from 1963 to 2002 and became a fellow of the Academy of General Dentistry in 1986 after completing extensive advanced study in the field. Bob served this community as city of Livingston and this community of the city of Livingston as a councilman from 1970 to 1984, and he was a founding member of the board of directors for the Bank of Livingston from 1990 until the bank merged with First National Bank of Livingston. He was an active member of the Livingston First United Methodist Church since 1965 and was a longtime member of this club, the Livingston Lions Club, in which he especially enjoyed working the club's mop and broom sale and Christmas tree lot. In 1999, Dr. Cook was honored with an Outstanding Graduate Award from Livingston High School. After retiring, Dr. Cook worked for Holland American Cruise Line as a ship's dentist, and Dr. and Mrs. Cook also traveled extensively, often with friends, by land and by sea, striking up many new friendships with Bob's introduction of, "I'm Bob, this is Pat, and we're the Cooks." Also in retirement, Bob volunteered for Manifest Food Pantry in Livingston for almost 10 years and was named Manifest Volunteer of the Year in 2007. Dr. Bob Cook was also a fixture in the local wine tasting club, Poco Vino. It's a good thing he was a Methodist and not a Baptist. Leading the tasting program from 1995 to 2013. He was an avid golfer for much of his life, and after retirement was a member of the Centex Grasshoppers Senior Golf Group. He held a lifelong interest in U.S. military aviation history and read countless volumes on the subject. In all of his pursuits, Bob shared his joy for life and humor, and was known for compassion and respect for others, as well as his unmistakable voice that carried across any room, even when whispering. And we can all attest to that even here in this room. He is survived by his loving wife of 55 years, Pat Cook of Livingston, son David Cook of Hickory Creek, Texas, daughter Sandra Cook of Houston, grandsons Jared and Kyle Cook of Hickory Creek, in-laws Steve and Sandy Geary of Lake Dallas, cousins Jerry and Monterey Marsh of Livingston, Linda Sue Tritchell of Huntsville, and great-nephews Stephen Manning of Houston and Craig Manning of Livingston. If you ever have time, I was also given a very extensive copy written by Dr. Cook of the history of his family and edited by Sandra Cook Burnett. And so if you ever have time, I have a copy and I'd love to share that with you if you'd ever like to read that. It's a very interesting sketch of his life and his family's life. Next, we have to remember Lion Gary Butler. Gary Butler passed away at the age of 76 on April 11, 2017. Was born on July 25th, 1940 in Thorndale, Texas, to parents Floyce and Daisy Butler, who preceded him in death, along with his stepfather, Charles Sanatsky, wife Jeannie Butler, brothers Sonny Butler, Bill Butler, and Larry Butler, and grandson Chad. Gary is survived by his sons Brian Butler and wife Tracy, Larry Butler, and his daughter Ginger Butler Partain, sisters Florence Wooten and husband Richard, June Page and husband Dan, grandchildren Chase Butler and wife Shannon, Noah Lindsay, Larry J. Butler II, Sarah Butler, Megan Partain, and Michael Ray Partain, great-grandchildren Rylan Butler, Aubrey Butler, and Grace Ashworth, numerous nieces, nephews, other relatives, and friends. Gary loved being a member of this club. He loved his children, and he loved his grandchildren, and he loved when he could bring them to this club and show them off every chance he got. He was a man who always had a smile on his face and always made you feel happy to be in his presence and is greatly missed. These are the Lions that we remember this year These are the lions that have served and been an example to each and every one of us. And these are the lions we give thanks for today. Henry, if you want to come and share.
Thank y'all, Mike and Jim. Now I would like to have a response from the audience on these gentlemen, and I'll start off with Glenn Cornelius. Benny?
Yeah, Glenn was my neighbor, and he was also my sponsor. I remembered after I joined the Lions Club, Glenn asked me to ride with him one day on the men's run. I said, okay, that'd be nice. Well, about a week later, the Mets all showed up at my doorstep. 3 years later, Jimmy Poston and Harold Barfield finally relieved me of it. But Glenn was a good neighbor, and the way I met him when I moved into the neighborhood, they would have fiddling every Saturday. And they invited me down to sit in, and Glenn was a good fiddle player, and I really miss him, and I want to be appreciative of him inviting me, or I wouldn't be a member today.
Anybody else? You know, even when Glenn was sick and couldn't get around very well, he always worked the Christmas tree lot. He'd call me and say, I'll be there, and he was there, and he did miss it. I think he may have missed last year and the year before, but before that, he was always there working that lot. Next gentleman we'll talk about is Gary Butler from Thorndale. Benny again.
Yeah, Gary, I met Gary through my Sunday school class, him and Jenny. And me and Jeannie had come down with, we got real close, his wife. We come down with cancer at the same time. Fortunately, I beat him, Jeannie did. And after that, Gary was kind of a lonely type person. He just didn't have a whole lot to say after that. He took it pretty hard. So I invited him to the Lions Club. And from day one, he told me he wanted to be a member. So he became a member, and then we got his brother, Sonny, to be a member. And like I'm saying, Gary was a good man. You could always, I know everybody in here could see him sitting in this chair, and had that big old smile, and had that little Corolla blocking the door. But I miss him and Sonny both. Sonny had to drop out because of his health. He didn't want to. But anyway, that's it on both of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Benny.
Yeah, I was in Gary's Sunday school class, and he just had a knack for telling stories. Best one, I think I gave him the name Old Sparky. He told a story about he had a pacemaker and defibrillator put in his chest, and the darn defibrillator started going off, and everything he touched sparked. So that's how we got the nickname Old Sparky.
That is.
Billy?
Gary was a friend for Bill and me, and he was in our Sunday school class. And his wife Jeannie was a special lady and a very good cook. And Gary always had a big garden. And about a month ago, Pastor Mike told us that his family had cleaned out his house, and they'd had a garage sale, and there were some things left, and they wanted to donate it to the Center Pope. So Bill and I went out there to see what was left and make a plan on getting our class or however many people we needed to go out there and pick up those things. And when we got there, there was a little lady that had rented the property, and there was Gary's garden. Wow, what a garden. He's been gone since April, but that garden was beautiful. And the little lady didn't know what anything was in the garden. And I told her, I said, well, I'm an old farm girl. You see these? These are carrots. And I pulled them up and I said, they're only about that long. You've got to give those a little more time to get ready. And there were butternut squash and regular squash, there was corn, there were tomatoes, there were eggplants. It was just a beautiful, beautiful garden. And he had fig trees, and he wanted to share, and he loved to share. He was a good friend, and we're all gonna miss him, but he was very, very generous man.
Beautiful.
Brent, did you want to say something?
Me and Gary have been friends for about the past 4 or 5 years, even before I joined the Lions Club. And one of the things I will always remember about him is his love and compassion for people, his encouraging heart. You know, you meet a lot of people that just kind of are there, right, and don't have a lot of kind things to say. Gary always had the kindest and most encouraging and loving things to say for people and to build them up and encourage them, always wanting to encourage and build people up. And that's what I remember, I guess, most about Gary, his loving and compassionate, merciful heart, and that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Gary liked to fish, and he would always put his boat in at the end of our cove and come out. So when I would be out working in the yard and stuff, he would come by and yell from the boat. And it was really interesting that about a month ago or so, somebody started yelling. I looked around and thought it might have been him or something. There was nobody there.
Next, we'll, Claude Durham.
Well, of course, Claude was a member of our club for years, and I looked the other day, and he had 2014-15 was his 22nd year of perfect attendance. I'm not sure now if he made it for 15-16, but anyway, he had those 22 years. But Claude was for a lot of you people that are new in this club, Claude was quite a character. He was a go-getter, and he didn't mind dishing it out, but he could take it too. And he loved working our projects. And one day, Carl, we were getting close to our rodeo working, and Carl said, well, you know, we got to find somebody to handle the soda fountain. Because Claude for years had worked the soda fountain just by himself, and boy, he could sling that ice and pour those drinks all at the same time. But he loved working projects. But my favorite thing was when we first started doing the Relay for Life. Brent Alexander, Jim McCarthy, Claude, and myself would all meet out at Walmart, and we had to load the drinks, we had to buy the supplies, we had to go get all of the meat, and so on and so forth. So Claude decided he was going to bring his little pup trailer one time. Well, we get out there, and he has it out there, and he said, oh, it's a lot easier using this trailer. Well, it wasn't any use in arguing with him. You know, we had pickup trucks, we could load it in, but we had to use that darn trailer. Well, we started putting those drinks on there, and that tire started going down, and that tire started going down, and I said, yeah, you idiot, now you see what we got. I said, we should have started with, whoa, boy, he started back at me, and I said, well, yeah, who's right this time? Who's right this time? But we took that stuff out to the field out there and unloaded it, and we sat around for a long time and just shot the breeze. And of course, he had all kinds of stories, too long to go into not right now, but he loved doing it. And he was, I think the guy knew more stuff on one finger than I'll ever learn about Lionism. I mean, all the way from the local level up to district, up to international. He was just something. We'll really miss him.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Well, remember, Claude was kind of a stickler for details. I remember helping out the Christmas tree lot, and we got there before Claude got there, and we had it about 70% set up. Till Claude came and says, take it down, it's all wrong. Had to take it down and start over to do it Claude's way.
Delphine?
Yes, when I was first elected to the Lions Eye Bank, he said he would drive because he knew where to go. So we went to Houston, we went into that parking garage. He had one of those posts, he said, okay, that's where we park every time.
Henry,
Yes, Mike.
in my second year in the club, I was having trouble seeing out of my only good eye, and it was because my cornea was spiraling out like a football. They tried to do surgery on it, LASIK, and it was no good. And Claude stopped me one day and we were discussing it, and he said, "You need a corneal transplant. I'll get one for you at the eye bank, Baylor Eye Bank in Houston." And he called down there, and I went for my appointment. Everything was ready to go. And the day I went in for my surgery, they told me I wasn't eligible. I said, "Why?" "Well, we don't give it to Lions. We serve, and we give it to others." So I got on the phone, and I called Claude, and about an hour later, they called me. We were sitting there, Lenore and I, and they said, "Your eye is ready." And he got me my cornea. So he had a little pull. So I appreciate that very, very much.
He'd love to hear that.
I was going to say something about Gary Butler a while ago. I always went through Thorndale going up to Round Rock to see my son, and I'd come back and tell Gary, I said, "They got a statue of you starting there in Thorndale." For 4 or 5 years I took him. They're almost finished with it. And, you know, he had 3 brothers, and if they were all the size of Gary and Sonny, can you imagine the amount of food their mom had to cook? Woo! But he always worked the fish fry, but he would package the cookies for us, and he'd sit at that table in there and put 2 cookies in a cellophane deal. 1,000, 1,100 cookies he would package, but he would always do it. Now, Bid said we got smart and quit doing that, but Gary worked at that. I mean, he got it in. Claude, you know, I heard a story 2 days ago on Claude. When he worked for the telephone company, he was a manager. And these little telephone, I don't know what you call them, buildings out here in the country, he was out there inside of one of them doing something and working. And one of the men that worked for him, a young man named Lemons, didn't know Claude was in there. Well, he left, shut, locked the door. Claude couldn't get out. And evidently this was before the cell phones. So Claude kicked the air conditioner out of the window, climbed out, and for the next week, nobody said a thing at the telephone company. They walked on needles, that's what I was told. But he was a stickler. He was one of the best lines around. He got it done. And I think his daughters will attest to that. Right? He was a stickler?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He got it done.
Okay, let's see. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Claude was one of those people that sort of worked and never took a lot of credit for things that I know of. He worked as helping out as treasurer. He took care of the billing, not only for the Lions Club here for a long period of time, but also for the district. Very active in that. And I can recall the first time when we went out to the rodeo, I decided to volunteer, so I got there early and I got on the grill. And I was informed that you can't do that because Carl Shank does the grill. So I moved over and I was having a good time doing the fountain drinks. And I got a tap on the shoulder and said, "You can't do that. You can do popcorn, but you can't do that." And, I was sitting here looking over at Kathy when she was president. It was Claude's last year for doing the treasurer work, the billing. And we went out to his house because he needed help for something. And what he was doing is he kept going to the point where he had to have everything so large on the screen that you could look and see the first name, the last name, and then you'd scroll over and you'd see, it'd take hours and hours to do that billing, but he did it and he was happy to do it.
Next, Dr. Bob Cook. I know somebody's got some stories or something on him. John Allen?
First, I'd like to say I have had and will always have great respect for Dr. Cook. He's part of the reason that we're here today as a founding member of the Bank of Livingston. It was chartered in 1985, and we moved here the day before I started first grade for that cause. He's a large part of the memories of my childhood. He mentored many of us for several generations through golf and hunting and all things University of Texas. I have a lot of stories I could share. Some I probably shouldn't give here. One of the earliest memories I have was myself. And my dad wasn't a hunter, so he stepped in and took us. And before we got there, we ran out of gas and had to walk 6 miles to knock on the door to find somebody that could get us some gas. But he used the hunting camps and the golf to mentor myself and all of the Haynes boys, and just really took time and invested in young people in the community. And I'm not sure everybody realized that. He was there to help. Some years later, he confided in me that he had great hopes for my attendance at the University of Texas, and that I had disappointed him greatly in my choice of Texas A&M. And I'm not sure he ever let that go, but I'm grateful for the character and the man and the guidance that Dr. Cook showed myself and other members of my family and this club and the community in general.
Don Allen, why don't you speak in the best way you can about the bench at the golf course you was telling me about? This is a new bench that Pat and the family put out at the golf course.
So there is a new bench at the golf course, and it's a very nice bench. It says, Dr. Cook says, and this isn't verbatim, but sit a spell, enjoy God's world. And my first thought of it was Dr. Cook would have told me to get up and go to work. We've got some things we gotta get done. He was notorious for grabbing in the early years myself or Rick Thompson as a helper, and we were going to work and we were going to do something and get it done. And he was always doing something. He was always had a project. Was just completing something. And so that was my first thought of the bench, so there you go.
Thank you. And I think the Cook family planted some trees out there too, hadn't y'all? In progress. I remember the first time on that golf course, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, hole number 4, Bob planted a bunch of pine trees on the left-hand side. That hole was hard enough without him planting all those pine trees. I can tell you that right now. But Bob came a member of this club in March of '64, and Mike referenced this history of the Cook family. Well, I sent that out to Freddie, and I believe she put it out on the email address for everybody. Y'all might have got it. But the first time I can remember meeting Bob Cook, I'd moved here in August of '68, right out of pharmacy school. And we were at a meeting one night at a JC meeting, and the game warden was there. And got a call from, he was with John Michael Manning, his nephew, and got a call from John Michael's wife that they were missing on the lake. Well, Gene Bruce said, I got to go find these guys. And I said, I'll go with you, because John Michael was a good friend of mine. We went to school in Dayton together. And the lake had just started coming up, so you had to kind of weave yourself in and out and all this stuff to get into the main body of the river. Well, we get in the river and we head up the river. And we get up there, and John Michael and Bob are sitting on this boat drinking some beer and smoking some cigarettes. And we said, what's the problem? And like John Allen just said, they ran out of gas. So we loaded on this little boat at the game warden, 4 of us, and we started back in a fog city. And I mean, you couldn't see far here, that post. If you know how a river does, it just does this. We kept hitting the bank, bounce it off, bounce it off. I don't know about Pat. I never talked to Pat about it, but my wife was pregnant with my son, and we didn't show up until about 9 o'clock the next morning. We spent the night on some little puddle of clay out there in the middle of this lake. And I forgot to stop by the house and tell my wife I was all right. I went on to work. This is Saturday morning. She called Mr. Epstein, says, I don't think Henry's going to make it in. He said, he's sitting over here on the stool right now. So she wasn't a happy camper, but the Cooks, Bob's family had the White Kitchen Cafe. Sometime that week, there was a can put in the cafe, gas money for Bob and John Michael. People were donating gas money. But that was I got to meet quite a few people that morning, because when we were coming back in, finally at daylight coming back in, John Gardner and John Lindsay, maybe Gary Walker, were coming down the river in a boat. We met them. They said, "What happened?" We told them. They said, "Well, they were just fixing to put a helicopter out in San Jacinto County looking for y'all." And I'm sitting here, man, this ain't good. We get up to the boat where we launched the boat. There must have been 60 cars there, 100 people. I don't know any of them, but it didn't take me long to meet them. But that was a memory of Bob. And Bob got me into this club in October of '71. And I appreciate that. So I appreciate Mike and Jim doing this and y'all participating in it. Go ahead, Mike.
One of the things that really stand out to me about all four of these men, as a young lion myself, is how much they were committed to serve even up to the very end. Being in this club was very important to them, and the way that they were able to serve the community through this club was very important to them. And I can remember Dr. Bob Cook not even really being able to get around very much, but still wanting to make a point to be here, because he was committed to this, and he was committed to the work that we were doing. And it's very inspirational to me to see these men be so committed to wanting to give back and to serve this community in a world where people are very quick to take. To see men who are so willing to give is just a very inspirational thing, and I thank God for all four of them and the example they set in this club. So
Thank you. Bill?
Henry, Dr. Bob was my first trip to the dentist. Of course, that's scary for any young kid, but he wasn't the most gentle dentist in the world, but he talked, like John said, he talked to you and mentored you. And you know, when I sat in the chair, of course, he started asking me about my whole family, you know, and I didn't have any idea who he was or that he knew my family. Of course, he knew everybody in Polk County. But he started asking me about that, and he put he fixed my first cavities, and I think, I may be wrong about one, that there's like 7 teeth that he filled in those early years, and I still have those fillings in my teeth 50 years later. So he was a pretty good dentist too.
Yeah, he was.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
One more thing. As the treasurer, Bob always used to say, well, you don't need to tell anybody. But this is my 7th year, but for 6 of those years, on every fundraiser that this club had, at the end of the fundraiser, he would come up and say, "Are we shy anything?" And I'd let him know if we were, and he'd give me a check for the difference. Or else it'd go on the bill, and I'm sure that Pat probably got a bill for one year for 13 Christmas trees, and she probably figured what was going on. But he did that for every single fundraiser we had because he wanted to participate, and he always wanted to make sure that we made budget.
Thank you. I don't know if the family has anything they'd like to say, then you're welcome to.
Well, he just loved this club and loved this town. That's all I can say. It was his hometown. He couldn't have been more of a native son, even though he was born in Houston. 3 days later, he was in Livingston, and it was there ever since.
close enough.
Well, I know he came to Dayton and stole you.
Actually, he got me in Houston.
Oh, I didn't? Okay.
Henry and I went to the same high school.
Excuse me.
Anyway,
They had something to say.
I had something to say.
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
My daddy was a very proud lion, and he was so happy to serve this organization, and he gave it his all. Unfortunately, his eyesight failed him in his later years, or he would have kept on going.
Yep.
But he loved everything the Lions Club stood for, and so proud to have served. One of his many things was collecting pins. I have got a van full of pins in the back that I would like to unload today, and anybody that wants any pins, they're more than welcome to them. There's no telling how much Daddy spent on these things, but it was important to him to make sure people had pins for their collections and everything. There's also stickers. I brought all that stuff, so.
Okay. If it's okay, I'll get them from you after the meeting, and we'll
Okay.
put them out next week and the week after, and then people can go through them then.
Okay.
Thank y'all. Okay, I'll ask Lion Jim Malin to do our benediction, and I appreciate y'all's patience on this.
Let's rise for the benediction. We join together. O God, before whose generations rise and pass away, we thank you for all your servants who, having lived this life in faith, now live eternally with you. Especially we thank you for our friends and fellow Lions whom we remember today, for the gift of their lives, for the grace you have given them, for everything in them that was good and faithful. We thank you that for them death is past, their misfortunes are ended, and they have entered the joy which you have prepared. Help us to be worthy of their heritage and to serve you as they did. For it is in your name that we pray. Amen.
All right, you can be seated. Well, thanks, Henry. That's an awesome program you do for us each year. And thanks to the families that were in attendance.